Hello, this is Dr. Schamberger, and in this brief video talk, we will focus on the cash flow statement. The cash flow statement is the third statement that is important as part of the annual report or the 10K for a public company. So a cash flow statement isn't always necessarily important for the shareholder. However, for a business journalist, it's important to examine because it's going to show the record of cash provided by all the cash sources for a public company, and of that cash, how they really use that cash. So it comes from three different sources: operations, investing, and then financing. That helps to determine or make up the public company's cash flow. The statement, though, provides great information about how a public company uses that cash. Maybe they use cash to, and when we say cash, we're not necessarily talking about really paper money. We're talking about the actual immediate access that it has to funds. So that way they can use that money to expand. Maybe they've got enough cash on hand to do that. And if they are stockpiling cash, why are they doing that? You can look at that at a cash flow statement. If you notice from one year to the next that its cash flow continues to improve, there's a reason why. They're getting ready to do something with that cash. It's up to you as the business journalist to find out why. They might also want to use it to pay down debt, especially if they have several sources of long-term debt. Maybe they're also buying back shares. They can do that because that's going to generate money for the public company. So they're getting ready to do something, especially if they're buying back shares. Maybe they're really getting ready to expand so much so that they anticipate stocks to be worth more at a later time. So this has all the information about investing and financing, and also the trends that you see in a public company's cash flow statement can help to tell the story of its ability to generate future positive cash. It also tells its ability to meet obligations and pay dividends. So again, if we're seeing some good, healthy cash flow, while at the same time they're able to manage their debt, that's something to really look into to see if maybe expansion opportunities are possible for that public company. Now, the overwhelming majority of all accounting standards deal really with the balance sheet and the income statement, not the cash flow statement, as I mentioned briefly earlier in this video. Why? Well, as I noted, shareholders don't always look at the cash flow statement, or even the investors might not really examine it so much. And much of the reason has to do with the fact that there's a lot of flexibility in the categories of cash flow statements. So there are different ways to calculate cash flow. Accountants use different they follow the same principles, but how they go about following those principles differs. So what one accountant might consider to go into a cash flow statement, another accountant might not categorize it the same. And it's also going to depend on how the public company is actually structured. But as long as they're reporting it in some way, you can still find trends. So that's not always the big concern. It's still a powerful tool for making a company successful, and definitely for you to use in trying to find those story ideas. It can be a powerful indicator for investors, but again, they rely more on that balance sheet and the income statement to make those decisions. So the resources, we've talked about all three of these statements. We've talked about the income statement, we talked about the balance sheet, and then we talked about the cash flow statement. Where can we find those? We find those at the SEC.gov website, and it's in the database known as EDGAR. EDGAR is an acronym that I'm not really sure exactly what it stands for. I think it's Electronic Database of Government and Accounting Reporting, if I remember right. But this way, you can find those documents. Now, some public companies might also have these documents on their website, because some of them do have a designated investors page or even, of course, the media page. Again, remember though, they're selecting certain data to share. So you can find the raw data in the EDGAR database. You can also use investing.businessweek.com, and I do encourage you to visit that because what that particular website does, it helps to provide the context. So if you're noticing something of a public company's income statement or even one of the other statements, or just looking at the annual report and you see that in EDGAR, then you can go to the Business Week's investing site and see if they have done any kind of analysis. And if they have, you can definitely use that and attribute it to that to help provide context for your news story. So it makes some great, rich information. So that concludes this focus on the public company's annual report, known as the 10K. Remember, the three documents we're concerned with this are the income statement, the balance sheet, and then the cash flow statement. Thank you for your attention.